Okay, I'm going to try as succinctly as I can to go over the model rules for each of the models in this battle report coming up. The first one is the Khan, or the leader of the Necromancer group, which is the Banished Necromancer. And I'm not going to go through everything like the quick descriptions I typed up and stuff. I didn't spend a ton of time on that, and I could have, made a lot better ones. I just want to show you how it all kind of pieces together so you can see what Adam's Past is all about. So I'm going to try and explain as simply as possible just the main points of these models I've created in here. So again, the Banished Necromancer, he is the leader of the undead band. So he's the Khan. If he dies, they lose. All the models are broken down by cost. I'm only going to do this part once where I, describe everything that we're kind of seeing over here just to set the basis for all of the rest of the models. So the other ones should go a lot quicker. A model cost that's calculated by totaling up all the different stat blocks costs and everything else from those different stat blocks. And you can make these for, I don't think I have a video out yet. I have a couple that I've been editing that show this, but you can make any type of stat block that you want. So this guy is pretty tough. This stat is durability. Durability is kind of a combination of health, toughness, and psychology. How longer is that model going to be able to stay on the battlefield while taking damage, or creatures around it taking damage? I think there's only one keyword I have right now called cowardly that affects durability outside of damage in a way that can remove models. And next, he has 6 movement. He is on a horse, as you remember. I'm going to have a little picture right there. But he's on a horse. I made that a modification. So there's 2 ways in Adam's Past that you can make mounts. You can either have it be tied to the model. They're just all one model, and they share model rules like this one. The horse he's on, I'm not giving him anything special. He's not even going to be counted as his own model. They're just one model. But there is a mount keyword, so you can make anything into a mount. You could have an ogre. Your wizard could be on top of an ogre, or you could make a 2-headed dragon creature and with the mount keyword, and then your wizard, or your necromancer in this case, could be riding it. So yeah, those are the 2 different ways. And for smaller models like this, I think just combining them makes sense. And for this smaller skirmish game, I didn't think having the horse mount be separate made a lot of sense. So anyways, that's long-winded about mounts. He's the only one in the game that has a mount. He's the only one that has a mount. So we're done talking about that. Abilities, this is melee ability here, and this is ranged ability, and then this is the melee ranged and the ranged range, how far the ranged abilities can go. I never loved calling that ranged range. It's like, what? But I couldn't think of something that kind of encapsulated all forms of ranged combat without. Anyways, just a little side development note. That's cringy to me too. But I couldn't think of better. Maybe it'll be renamed someday. All the updates are always free. That's a part of having it in a digital format, is that those are always going to be free. And so even bigger updates like maybe changing how some of these stats work will always be free with Adam's Past. Once you buy it, you have it forever in its best form. So, I was talking about abilities. So, this example, melee ability of 6 works really well. So, the Adam's Past dice system scales per 6 ability. And for every 6 ability, you add a dice to the ability dice roll. There's a ton of keywords that affect those dice rolls. Like, that's the main thing that keywords do, is affect ability dice rolls. And you take, so in this instance, we're right up at the 6 mark. So we just have 1d6. And we would roll it. Let's say we roll a 3. We would take our ability, subtract the dice score, and that's how much damage we get. So we want to roll low. But I wanted a curve, which will be kind of talked about here with the ranged ability. I wanted a curve where, the higher you go, you add more dice, you're still rolling under, so you get more predictability and more potential damage, but also like kind of a more predictable pattern, the bell curve of statistics for your damage curve per model. Anyways, so to continue talking about that, he's not very great in melee. I mean, he can poke people, and if he gets lucky, even do some half decent damage. But his ranged ability is really frightening with his Staff of Death. So the same thing. It's an ability dice roll. So 24. That's 4d6. It's every 6 you go up a dice. So his ranged ability is pretty strong. He's out there shooting spells at people. He has some interesting keywords. So there's base keywords that always apply. There's melee keywords. He doesn't have any. He can poke people with his short sword. And then he has ranged keywords here. And so he's got a flanking shots keyword and a lethal ranged keyword. So flanking shots deals with a rule where you can get an advantage if you have more models attacking from different angles. It just gives you a bonus for your positioning of units. So he can do that while shooting. He can team up with somebody in melee to get an advantage while shooting someone, but the angle for flanking shots is more than 90 degrees, which is described in the rulebook. Yeah, more than 90 degrees. And so you have to be in the right position. You have to have him somewhere that even can kind of trigger. And then lethal ranged is before any of the modifications. If you roll 2 1s, you just destroy the model that you were blasting, in his case with his Staff of Death. So that's a quick breakdown of the Necromancer. It wound all over the place as we talked about all the stats. The other models, all I'll be doing is kind of giving their name. You can see them on the screen, and I'll quick go over their stats and their keywords. I won't do the same breakdown. Let's do the giant undead spider. So this guy, pretty tough, pretty quick moving. He's huge, very strong in melee with longer melee reach. The ranges are in inches. This guy has a massive 2, so when he performs charge actions, he does extra damage. He's reanimated, which makes him harder to hurt, but also means he's kind of clunky and doesn't attack very well. He's got regeneration, because this guy is the undead, or the Necromancer's first big pet, so he's been like continuing to enhance him through his necromantic powers. It's got brutal strength. It's like huge, which is a keyword perk for melee. That when he gets a 1, it adds 2 to the result. And then poisoned. This guy, every 4 damage that this giant undead cave spider does, it gives a poison timer to the model. I didn't get into timers with the Necromancer, so really quick, a big foundation, probably the foundational gameplay mechanic of Adam's Past is it's based on time. So you have activation timers that in the rules it's called down ticking. They lower in value until they're gone. So if you have a dice and it's activation timer 2, you put a dice down to represent that, it down ticks at the start of the turn, and now it's down to 1. And then the next turn it would be gone, and that model could then activate again. So certain actions take more time than other actions, like charging takes more time. This will be, I'm not going to talk about this a lot right now. I'll get into way more details on that with the battle report. That's what that video is for. Skeleton Axe Warrior, here we go. Okay, so these Skeleton Axe Warriors, I wanted them to be kind of small, but like represent the undead really well. So their durability is less than we've seen anybody else's. They're kind of slow. They pack a little bit of punch in melee though. They have Rise Again. Once per game, when this model is destroyed, do not remove it from the battlefield, but set its durability to 4. So they get to come back and take another hit, which I think is really fun. They have imprecise melee and freezing melee attacks. Again, that battle report's going to get into that more. So that's the skeleton boys. So the skeleton ogres, which after looking at the model again, they could be the amalgamations of the undead dwarves that the Necromancer has been working on getting. Oh, I kind of like that. It's dark. Okay. These dudes are so tough. Lots of durability there. Pretty decent in melee. Good melee range. They also have mass. So if they get the charge off, they'll do some damage. They have really good armor. It'll get into the battle report, but they are really tough to hurt. Like they're just brick houses. They also have freezing melee attacks. I mean, I guess I'll go through these keywords. You'll see them in action in the battle report, but I talked about reanimated and mass, power from pain. I talked about with the I didn't talk about that with the Necromancer. I missed that. So activation timers and power are the two resources that are played around with to tilt things in your favor in Adam's Past. Power can be used to accelerate, so to downtick an activation timer, or it can be used to power up to downtick like a spell or to cast a spell. So getting more power when you do damage is that's nice. You can do a lot of things on your turn with that power. So yeah, I guess that wasn't really an explanation at all. You can do stuff with your power. You'll see in the game how the power is used. And that is it for the Necromancer boys. Let's talk about the dwarves. I have a different dwarf army thing I was working on, but I called these guys the Depths Guard, which I thought was kind of fun. So these dwarves are super hard to break down. They've got pretty high durability. They're slow. They're a little pokey, but they're mostly just little tanky boys. 6s can't be re-rolled or modified. They have stubborn keyword, which if a friendly model is destroyed, then they'll downtick. So they'll they're going to stick with the struggle. They have a keyword called formation training, which lets them attack through a friendly model in their warband that also has it, which is really nice because if you can attack through if you have range and like a gap in the model bases normally, but the model would get it'd get a full cover save, which would make it pretty hard to get significant damage through. These guys have enhanced armor, so they take less damage from all attacks. They take 2 less damage, and then they have a little bonus on their hand axes and hand hammers, their dwarvish weapons. And that is the depth guard. And now I think the prince was Dwarf Prince. Let's go through him. So Dwarf Prince, very tough, slow, hopefully hits like a truck. He's got some good He has some good keywords. Brutal strength. This cleave keyword should help. Maybe he can cut through some of those skeleton warriors. If he destroys the target model, then if there's any extra damage, it can transfer to an enemy model. He gets to re-roll with Master Forged Melee. He gets to re-roll one of his attacking dice. He's super tough and hard to hurt. Tough, stubborn, formation training. So this is nice because he can attack over his bodyguards, which is like he's being protected by them and he can be lobbing off heads from behind. He's a veteran, so he gets to re-roll. For his melee attacks, he gets to re-roll 2 dice with Master Forged and being a veteran. He takes less damage from the first attack. He always takes less damage, and once per turn with warding, he can subtract 6 from a result. So if he's being attacked and maybe it's going to kill him, he can subtract 6 from that roll and stay alive. So that's the Dwarf Prince. Now we've got the Templars. These Templar of the Hammer, that's what I call them. So these guys are moderately durable, not kind of middle of the road, slowish move, normal move, a bit more killy than the dwarvy boys. They do have enhanced armor. They're wearing that cool full plate mail. And then they've got some melee keywords. They're melee experts, so they get to modify a dice. If they get down to a 1, they add 4 damage, which is pretty good, and they get to re-roll. So these guys can smack around. They're not super fast, but yeah, I mean they're in full plate mail. So, and that is all of the models talked about and shown in here. All right, to finish up this video about the models, you can see that now that we have all of our models, we can put them into a warband. And so this is the Dwarf ambush warband that I made. I have 4 of those Templars and 6 of the Depth Guard and the Dwarf Prince, who is the Khan. And then for the Necromancer warband, we can go in and check that one out. See, we've got our Banished Necromancer with his rules. We've got our 3 skeleton ogre bodyguards at 158 a pop, 1 giant undead cave spider, and 5 skeleton axe warriors. So a fun little skirmish amount of models, very narrative driven for this particular game. I hope you enjoyed. checking out the models with me and this quick look at throwing them into a warband. You'll see how that connects later. Please tune in to the next video. I'm going to go over the spells that I made for them.